All right, Chris. Hey, good afternoon, Chris. I think we are live. How's it going?
Good, Grant. Good to see
Good.
you.
All right, good. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining this afternoon's webinar on Inside the 2025 GigaOm Anti-Phishing Radar. Apologies for starting a little bit late. We ran behind on a couple of things, but good to have everyone here wherever you may be. So we're very excited today, and I'll kind of just maybe first introduce ourselves and then go through the agenda. But again, my name is Grant Ho. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Iron Skills, been here about 3 years. So very excited to share and more importantly, introduce our guest today, Chris Ray, who is the Field CTO of GigaOm. Chris, welcome. And you want to maybe share a little bit about yourself before we go forward?
Yeah, sure. So I've been here at GigaOm since 2021. Wow, it's been a while. Started as an analyst before coming here as a practitioner. So that means hands-on implementer, builder. Worked a variety of roles from help desk up to CISO, architecture, engineering, everything in between. Worked in big banks we all recognize the names of. Worked in tech, worked in startups. So I bring that up because as we go through this, it's a really good introduction to GigaOm. If you're not familiar with us, we're a practitioner-led research organization, unlike some of the others in the analyst arena. I won't even say peers because there's really nobody like us. Um, it's important to remember that as we go through this because the discussion will be on the practical capabilities and benefits of the technology, not market penetration, not marketing slogans, not your effectiveness from a business that's trying to sell a product.
Awesome. That sounds great, Chris. Well, definitely look forward to your experience and expertise. We definitely have a bunch of folks on this call, and we'll send this out afterwards. So look forward to diving in. So for everyone on the call, just a couple things. If you have questions during the call for our customers, our partners, our MSPs, definitely add them into the chat. We have a couple of our Iron Skills subject matter experts out there who can answer any questions you have. So definitely do that. At the end of the webinar, if you have any questions, definitely add them in, and we can float them by Chris. Definitely, while we have Chris here, we want to take advantage of his market, his practitioner outlook, his analyst outlook. So if anything you have, Chris is the person who can help us, make sense of this changing anti-phishing space and email security. So look forward to it. I think for the agenda, it's pretty quick. We're going to go through, have Chris introduce a little bit more about GigaOm and this anti-phishing radar. We're going to spend some time where I'm going to have a conversation with Chris about, kind of his outlook on where's this market going from a technology perspective, from a needs and a buyer perspective. So really kind of get in depth behind that. Then we'll share, or Chris is going to share the vendor placement in this anti-phishing radar. And then for those who may be new on the webinar, who don't know too much about skills, I just do a quick introduction about Iron Skills in case you're interested as well. So that, Chris, maybe we'll start with you. You kind of alluded to it, but maybe a little bit more about GigaOm, and then we can introduce the radar for those who may not be too familiar with GigaOm.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. So like I said, practitioner-led, meaning I'm not the only analyst here. I'm not the only field CTO. I'm the field CTO of security and risk. We have a field CTO for cloud operations, field CTO for other major technology domains. But then kind of taking a step back and looking at who's actually producing the reports, like the anti-phishing report that we're talking about today. I didn't produce that report. I produced 10, 11 other reports. But every single analyst here is a practitioner, either formerly before working at GigaOm full time or currently. We have in our stable of analysts, we have people like Anton Shuvakin, famous from working at Google on the security team there. These are people who are deeply familiar with the pains of trying to secure the enterprise, secure small business, secure from an MSP standpoint. And they bring that expertise like I do, and they put it into the report. And that's really what we're trying to do, is distill the wisdom that we've painfully earned over the years of working in tech into a concise buyer's guide. And in this case, the buyer's guide is the radar report. The radar report contains a sample of a technology space, and we use table stakes as a filter criteria. So we say you have to have these capabilities in order to be considered this technology. Either you are or you are not. And then everybody who matches that goes into the report. They get charted onto the 360-degree graphic that you're familiar with, Grant, the radar graphic. Generally closer to center is better, but not always. Also, I'll take a moment to kind of break the paradigm that some other analyst firms have set up and to the right is not where your leading solutions are in the radar graphic. So I know there's another graphic out there. Up and to the right is where the leading solutions are. That is not the case. So when we talk about the radar, keep that in mind. The radar allows us to be very nuanced in our description of the technology, the benefits it brings to the organization, and what buyers that appeals to.
That's great. I think it's so important. I know for many of our customers and partners here, many of them are in that, just to maybe read it, in that practitioner led side of the business. Like they're very much in their business. They work very closely with their clients and their customers. So great to have this practitioner led perspective, or this, to your point, this very practical perspective on anti-phishing and on email security. So hopefully this will be very, very helpful for our audience today. So appreciate that, GigaOm, and I know this is the piece right here that your colleagues have led. So do you want to maybe speak about like what this anti-phishing radar is? I know you look at different vendors, right, across different features, but I think this would be very helpful context for our audience on this very, very important report that you guys have published as you looked through this anti-phishing landscape.
Yeah. So taking, what we just talked about, that's the base layer. Let's now add another layer onto that to kind of build on your understanding. Like I said before, we have table stakes. That's our filter criteria. We're drawing a circle. We're building a box, whatever you want to visualize. We have to somehow say, this is how we logically include or exclude solutions from this report, because we can't arbitrarily do it. Otherwise, we'll end up with an incomplete picture of the segment. So those are table stakes. They're not scored. They don't benefit a vendor to do a table stake really, really well. It's just one of those things like you have to do it in order to be an anti-phishing solution. So then how do we take the survey of all the technology and all the vendor in the report and actually make it useful to the buyers? Well, that's where the key features come in. The key features, another way to think of them is they're differentiating features. Key features aren't a comprehensive understanding of every feature available in an anti-phishing solution. No, they are the few select features that are high impact and will be high value to the majority of the buyers. We obviously can't survey and score and audit every single feature that we come across in an anti-phishing solution. So from a practical standpoint, we have to identify those most impactful features. And that's what you see here. Key features such as multi-channel integrations, trading tools, AI-enhanced threat protection, security stack integration, response automation, security awareness insights, and threat intelligence integration. So the way this works is we score them on a scale of 0 to 5. 0 is you just don't do it at all. 5 is you're demonstrably better than almost everybody else in the space. And you can consider a 3 an average. There's nothing wrong with a 3. That's a 3 in some spaces can be a significant capability. It really depends on each technology space. So we score them, and that's probably about 70 to 80% of the vendor's placement on the radar, which you can see in the upper left there, closer to center is definitely generally better. But then we also have to address, well, this is the technology as it is today. What about where the technology might be in 12, 24, 36 months? That's when we start talking about the emerging features. The emerging features are the capabilities that are right on the cutting edge. They may not yet prove to be valuable. They may be valuable, but there's something that either buyers are asking for and vendors are trying to achieve, or vendors have identified, hey, this solution or this capability, it may not yet be in demand, but we know where the market's going, and we're going to take a leap of faith and we're going to build capabilities that give us this feature. So in this case, we have emerging features as Wi-Fi phishing and deepfake phishing prevention, which I agree with both of those. Those are going to become very important capabilities in the future. So how does a buyer use that information? A buyer can look at the key features, differentiate the vendors, make a short list, say, okay, these are the 2, 3, 4 vendors I need to talk to instead of 15, 20, 25. And then they can say, of these ones, I see these vendors are working on, deepfake phishing prevention as a emerging feature. Maybe in 24 months, it's going to be mainstream and it'll be mature and we can actually use it. I'm going to select that vendor so that I don't have to change vendors in a year or 2. I just want to buy one now, stick it out with them, use the solution, the capabilities that they have, and then grow with them. So that's what we help you do with the emerging features. And then business criteria. These are non-functional evaluation metrics.
Mhm.
So what that means is they are not the technical capabilities. They are, how is it, in this case, ease of adoption? How difficult is this to implement and use, or ease of management? Then we look at flexibility. How generally applicable will this technology be to the different standards or requirements of the organization? And then cost is always an important factor, never goes away. And then the ecosystem. What does it generally integrate with? Who are their official partnerships with? Does the technology in my incumbent stack align better with this solution over this solution? That's what we're talking about with ecosystems.
Yeah.
So that was a lot. Grant, do you have any
No,
questions?
this is super helpful. I think now I think at this level, and before we kind of go into your analyst outlook, it makes a ton of sense, right? Like from that practitioner level, you have to get to this level of depth. And it sounds like for your radar, yeah, you both look at it sounds like the key features, what's coming in the horizon, but then also obviously the business impact. Maybe a question like, as you said, right? Anti-phishing, and we've been in this space for, we started in this space over 10 years ago as a company. um, these key features, how do you, as GigaOm, how do you even decide on what are the core key features organizations to think about? Like, how did these get on the list to begin with? What makes them on the list? And more importantly, for our buyers to think about as they think about buying decisions.
Yeah. So this is, if you remember during my introduction, we were talking about practitioner-led research.
Mm.
Everybody who's an analyst here is or was a practitioner. And what we're trying to do is distill down the wisdom. And wisdom is that's that hard-earned lessons, right? That's the pain from being up at 3 a.m. from pager duty, and realizing you have a shortcoming, or you have a gap, or you have something that didn't work, you weren't aware of it. That wisdom is a component in developing the key features. The other component is, as we look at, like I said, table stakes define the space. They tell us who's going to be in the report. We then go and look at all those vendors. And if we see a common thread, vendor to vendor to vendor to vendor, say in this case, it's AI enhanced threat protection, well, we know just from inference, this must be a really important feature. If every single vendor in the space is doing this, this must be something in demand. We need to better understand it. We need to score it, and we need to evaluate it. So
Yep.
those two, the wisdom component, and then also surveying the landscape and seeing what's out there, that helps us build our key feature list. Like I said, we can't evaluate every single feature or
Mhm.
capability that's in a technology space. If we talk about EDR or XDR as an example, there's hundreds of capabilities and features in those solutions. It's
Yep.
not feasible to measure those in a meaningful way in a report that's actually going to be useful. So what we do is we boil down using the wisdom, using the commonality between vendors, we identify the key features in the space. We do that for all the reports.
Yep. This is super helpful. I think this is a good segue into kind of getting your thoughts on some of the emerging trends as it relates. And even as I, as I start to look through this feature list, obviously anti-phishing solutions, email security, very, very complex, a lot of different kind of point capabilities, and it sounds like there's a lot of vendors kind of bringing together multiple capabilities under a single platform. I think we see a lot in the market as well. We agree the shift towards AI enhanced threat protection is really going the way, obviously, because of these emerging threats like deep fakes or whatever coming. So I'd love
Mhm.
to start to pick your brain on that, but maybe this is a good segue into, given this baseline of email security capabilities, what's required, what's emerging, and how should businesses think about it? Maybe my first question as I go to the next slide, you know, I have a couple questions. I think we talked about this before. Is if you were to look at that whole kind of anti-phishing landscape with email security, how do for the customers you talk to, for the clients you talk to, what's there's a lot of different cybersecurity priorities, right? So email security and anti-phishing. What do you see in terms of kind of that priority in terms of budgeting and trying to solve for anti-phishing in 2026 as we enter the new year? Any guidance for our audience out there, Chris?
Yeah. So there's a few things that come to mind. One, there's so many people that use Office 365. They use G Suite.
Mm.
These platforms have, depending on the attack vector, pretty good anti-phishing capabilities built in. Google is pretty good at stripping out or tagging or allowing the administrator or operator of the platform to configure it in a way where maybe all external emails are tagged. That's great. That's a good first step.
Mm.
So for organizations that are already doing that, the pitch from the practitioner, from the frontline security management, they can have a hard time selling the idea of spending green money, new money, allocating new budget to enhance that anti-phishing capability. What they need to do is they need to be able to pick apart and understand, where does G Suite or Office 365 or whatever email host, where does it fall short? What is it not doing for us? What can something like an Iron Scales or somebody else in the anti-phishing space do for us? How does that ultimately reduce risk in a meaningful way? And then if you can also talk about, maybe there's some cost savings, maybe there's some productivity improvements, whatever the case may be. Maybe you reduce friction because you're quarantining fewer emails or stripping out fewer attachments, whatever the case is. um, I see that kind of unanimously across the board. Everybody I talk to is like, well, our email provider does anti-phishing already, so we're good. Well, no, you're not. You just don't understand the shortcomings, and you need to be able to articulate those so that you can get your budget approved or whatever the case may be. The the other side of this is, and it kind of it aids that discussion,
Mhm.
because boards love to talk about AI right now.
Mm,
They are all about AI. Leadership understands AI is a force multiplier.
mm,
Well, not only is it a force multiplier for business operations, it's a force multiplier for attackers.
mm.
Grant, you know this. I mean,
Yeah,
it's accelerating and amplifying the email based attack vectors. We have
yeah,
things like, business email compromise as a service.
yeah,
That is powered by AI. That scale would not be powered, would not be capable otherwise. We have things like text, voice, video,
yeah,
AI powered. We have, those those new capabilities are now being coupled with old features, such as, I just seen this. I don't remember where it was at. Probably Twitter X, whatever you want to call it.
mm,
It was a screenshot of a phishing email somebody got, and it was supposed to be from Microsoft.com, but what it was is it was lowercase r, lowercase n,
mhm.
ICORS, FT. It looked just like Microsoft without really digging into it,
Yeah,
but it was combined with an AI produced image
yeah,
that was then linked to that same domain with an AI produced video.
yeah, yeah.
And it was very authentic feeling. It was very convincing.
Very
That
convincing.
combined, so the new AI combined with the old techniques, it's making things much more difficult.
Yeah, it's a really great point you mentioned there. You're actually hitting on themes, or I'll ask you in the subsequent questions, but that's how we see it as well. Kind of what we hear from customers, and in sort of a point of view we see, and we're starting to advance is, you mentioned business email compromise. I think that's been around for 10 years, but we also see with the advent of AI, it's almost like a renaissance of business compromise, business email compromise. It's not like
Yeah,
your
that's a good way to
your
describe it.
father's or your mother's business email compromise from 10 years ago. Like, AI is creating a next generation of business email compromise. That's, what we hear is from our customers and partners, that's even more personalized, it's even more pointed, it's across different attack vectors. So like the BEC problem is still there. It's only getting worse, and it's going through a resurgence or a renaissance. That's what we're seeing. I think you brought up another interesting point that I want to poke into. That's part of your report. You mentioned right here, like the M365 and GWS space. We have customers like that, and obviously they're the big share of the cloud-based email security market, and they have their kind of core capabilities for phishing. And I think we know from a lot of these cloud-based providers or customers, they typically have some type of email gateway system or rules based system right in place to stop some of these advanced phishing attacks. Something I thought was interesting in the GigaOm report, and I'll kind of ask you to do this question is, what do you see in terms of kind of a rules based approach to email security versus what you're starting to write in the report of, we need to think about an AI based approach, the AI powered protection versus just rules and signatures. Any thoughts on that, and kind of how that landscape is evolving, Chris?
Yeah, and it's exactly right. It's an evolution. It's not a revolution. We're not throwing away what's here and then starting from scratch. It's evolving.
Hmm.
The best way to think about it is that evolutionary path. Rules are good. Dynamic rules are better. AI inference can be better, but we're early. It doesn't. I wouldn't blindly trust it. You need to see how it's done, what its practical impacts are. And I'm not saying it's going to replace rule based, but it's definitely going to augment. I think you're muted, Grant.
about that. Yeah, no, it's interesting. Like our whole kind of protection is based on AI, but we also have this approach, and I love your take on it too, where we see human in the loop is still very, very important, right? So kind of what, what makes RA a little bit different, just for those out there, is while I have very powerful AI models, they're constantly being updated and improved through the power of people, right? Through the power of community, right? So we see like while there are customers who want AI to solve everything, we're also learning more and more that making sure that the AI has a strong kind of human in the loop component is important as well. Is that something you're hearing, or do you see different
Yeah.
variants?
No, that's you and I are in lockstep there.
Yeah. I think another interesting thing on the port, I sort of kind of hinted at earlier, a lot of different capabilities, obviously in email security and anti-phishing that you shared earlier. And I'm curious on your thoughts of, do you see this evolution, like point products solving certain things? Or when I looked at your list of all these key features, right, there's email security there. I think there was, security awareness training in there. There was deepfake protection in there. There was SOC automation there towards more of this platform-based approach. How are buyers thinking about point versus platform in light of email security, anti-phishing? What are you hearing in the market there? And you could inform our audience.
Yeah. So email security, anti-phishing, ASM, vulnerability management, EDR, XDR, kind of across the board. I can't say 100%. I'll say 97%. You can quote me on that. About 97% of the technologies that buyers are looking at, they want a platform. They do
Mhm.
not want to be implementing a point solution for specific feature sets. And I think a lot of vendors know that because we're seeing the platformization
Mm.
of all sorts of different stuff.
Mm.
That's not to say there aren't feature plays out there that are good.
Mm.
Like I said, the radar is nuanced. It's 360 degrees. There isn't a single best quadrant to fall into. It depends on the buyer's requirements, what their needs are for the organization, what problems they're trying to solve. If a feature play solves the problem that they set out to do and it's cost effective and it aligns with their ecosystem, there's no problem in purchasing that,
Mhm.
right? I mean, you'd have to be crazy to say get a platform because you need a platform.
Yeah.
You need to be able to rationalize it. For the majority of buyers, though, they don't want to have whatever that number is, 60, 70 different technology vendors in their environment. They like to consolidate.
Yeah. Do you see that there is a trend line heading into, because you talked to a lot of buyers and practitioners? Is that something going into 25? Is it cost savings, like tools consolidation, single throat to choke vendors? Anything there? I just think about those who are looking for platform, ways they can start to you know think about platforms, sell the idea of more platforms, right, to their upper chain. Is there guidance there that you can offer, Chris?
Yeah, it's just easier. I
Mhm.
mean, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, that's what it comes down to: simplicity. We are busy trying to triage security events. We're
Mm.
busy trying to forecast whatever it is, the next 3 months, 6 months of our security roadmap.
Yeah.
We're busy doing user education awareness. We're busy doing trainings. We're busy
Yeah.
just showing up and doing our jobs and doing them well.
Yeah.
We also don't need to be busy vetting 60 different vendors, putting them through third-party risk assessments, collecting
Right.
SOC 2 and ISO 27001, and
Yeah.
pouring over those, and then doing that again every year, depending on the criticality of the vendor. It comes down to overworked, overloaded, and
Mm.
we just need a simpler approach. That's why platforms are popular. The simplicity offered by that, the reduction in the operational overload, like I just, all those things I just described, those are all important factors. Cost is always an important factor. Ease of implementation always
Mm.
going to be important, but
Yep.
ease of implementation is going to be directly impacted by, is it a platform or is it not? Because if you want to jump into a technology that's similar and it's offered by the same vendor, well, you just reach out to your rep, you talk to them, maybe they just turn a knob, pull a lever, whatever the case is on the back end, and now you've got a new menu item. You don't have to deploy anything. It's already on wherever you're at. It's working where you're working. You just need to learn how to use it and put it to work.
Yeah. That's super helpful, Chris. Yeah, and to your point, like as we talk to our customers, we definitely feel the empathy, like, or have the empathy around, like, we talk to our customers who are on the front lines. I mean, they are busy, and I learned, at least during my time at Iron Skills, talking to many customers, like it is not an easy job. It is firefighting. It is like multiple, like a lot of stress all the time. So anything you can do to help that IT SOC admin's life be easier, we definitely hear a lot of that. So
Yep.
that makes a ton of sense. Just a couple more questions before we kind of reveal the results of the radar, Chris. You talked about this, and I'd love to maybe dive more. Like just you mentioned it, AI generated attacks. I think this was part of your emerging feature set around deep fake phishing prevention, which was great to see in your radar. This is a pretty loaded question, right? You mentioned AI is this double-edged sword, right? It's great for the defenders, but boy, these attackers have it. Just share more if you had to look through your crystal ball. I guess my question is not so much where the market's going, because you know where it's going, but what do you think in terms of how much worse it's going to get, right? What's the volume of these attacks, the sophistication of these attacks as a result of attackers using AI? Like, how do you see that evolving in the next year or so?
So there's, let me start with a good example of something that I was involved in, probably 10 years ago. I worked at a financial institution, federally regulated. The CFO received an email from the CEO that said, hey, new vendor, we need to wire them $18,000 by the end of business today. Otherwise, the deal falls through. Do it now. CFO does it. CFO walks out of the office at lunch, walks by the CEO's office, pops in, gives him a thumbs up and said, hey, I took care of that for you. You're all set. CEO is like, what are you talking about? That's business email compromise, right? Somebody phished them. Somebody sent them an email, convinced the CFO to wire them money.
Right.
That was 10 years ago. It's less effective now because everybody's heard a story like that. Everyone's experienced it. They know a friend. They know a business. They've seen a headline, whatever the case is. So it's top of mind. We're aware of that. We know to look for it. There's the red flags to look for now. We've all had the training. But what AI is going to do is it's going to give attackers the ability to synthesize media, synthetic media, videos, pictures, voice, even text, which is not as sexy sounding as it may be, but you could drop 10,000 words written by somebody into just about any LLM and say, write like this person in a compelling way to convince somebody to do something, right? And it will take their intonation and their tone and their writing style, and it will match that human. So you combine that with synthetic media like I'm talking about, and that's where we've identified the deep fake prevention as a really important feature. It's going to become very challenging because AI has empowered massive growth in attack volume coupled with massive growth in attack complexity. How do you solve that problem now?
Yeah, what you said there is something definitely we're hearing more from our customers and partners. You mentioned, boy, it's not just like text with email. It's about deepfake voice, deepfake video. 100% agree with that. And then the other thing you mentioned is just across the different communication channels now. Like it's not just through email, right? It's through your collaboration platforms like Teams. It's maybe starting with a phish that comes through LinkedIn. So the coordination of all of those channels through different modalities, whether it's text, voice, or video, like they are all reinforcing one another. So it's almost as if like the phishing problem is really growing beyond just an email problem. Like the email thing, I think we understand, but it's going to these new modalities. It's going to these, these new channels that are all, working in concert together by the attackers. And does that sound like that? Like that's really what we need to start to think about and solve for as we move forward.
And that's always been the case, but it's only accelerating, right? For a phish to be successful, there needs to be context. Email alone is not enough context anymore. Attackers know this because, for the most part, every organization does anti-phishing training now. Like I think it's a requirement for SOC. It's a requirement for GLBA. It's compelled. So people are aware of email, but they don't take what they learn with email and apply it anywhere else. And that's a major problem.
Got it. So really organizations should kind of take those learnings, but make sure they start to think these other modalities and channels more seriously, just as we kind of solved the email. We're never really solving the email thing, but take it more seriously in these other modalities and channels. That's your guide. Cool.
Yep.
I have one last question before we go to the placement, and this wasn't covering your report, but I love your thoughts because you're obviously yourself and the GigaOm, you're very forward thinking. I think one of the things we hear a lot, right, just in this email security space and cyber broadly is agentic AI. It's kind of this buzzword that's been happening. Love your just kind of open thoughts on the role of agents that you see in email security. You know, the role of agentic AI. If you have a point of view of that in anti-phishing, just maybe speak openly about this if you have some thoughts on this, Chris.
Yeah, and this is, I'll say, it applies to the anti-phishing market, but it also applies to a lot of other security technologies that I
Mm,
cover. Agentic AI has a lot of capability, a lot of promise. Um, so far, vendors don't seem to be overhyping it, which is good because that
true.
will only lead to um, disappointment. That's not to say that it's going to disappoint, but sometimes you see technologies get way hyped up. Like, who remembers remote browser isolation (RBI)? That was super hyped up. It's going to solve all of our problems.
Right.
It's so secure. It's going to fix,
Mm,
no more end user problems like that. Well, no, that's not the case. It's not a universal comprehensive solution. It's really good for high security, high stakes situations, but not for everything else. That's not happening with agentic AI, and that's good because I think agentic methods have a lot of potential, and I don't want them to get overshadowed by the hype. And really, what I'm thinking about here is we have workflows
yeah.
within a lot of technologies,
Yeah.
automations, stitches, whatever you want to call them, uh, but they are rigid. They're
Mm,
structured. They're not dynamic. Um, you need hundreds of playbooks in a SOAR, for example, or a security automation platform in order to account for all the possibilities. Agentic AI, if done well, if done right, gives you the capability of having one or two or three essentially playbooks, or
mm,
air quotes around that, but that can handle maybe 100 different use cases.
I see.
So that's really where I see it. It's going to amplify the automation capabilities,
Yeah.
but I don't know if we're quite there yet.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's really interesting. You mentioned kind of automation, and just, just share with our audience a little bit. Like, it's something we've been definitely thinking about. And, for those in the audience, we'll certainly share more about our agentic capabilities. Super exciting stuff. But I think the point on automation is interesting to us because as just to kind of bring full circle a little bit, you mentioned like, look, this is where the market's going. The renaissance of BEC into these multimodal, multi communication channels, and it's almost like this kind of how we think about it is like, you need to really be able to be better at anticipating what the attackers are actually going to do, because they have now the wealth of tools to really create a lot of havoc, right? And the question in our mind is, how do you stay one step ahead of the attackers, and being more proactive, being more preemptive is sort of that approach we're starting to think about. And then to be more preemptive or proactive is almost using automation or using agents as a way to achieve that, right? So can you be more preemptive or proactive in your defenses? Can you be more preemptive or proactive in simulating your employees or training them? So that's how we think about, like, just to tie your point about automation, of using that automation in a more preemptive approach to make sure your people, right, are trained better, and or your defenses are trained better as well. So that's,
Yep.
just to add another layer into the agentic lens. But this is awesome, Chris. And I'll go to the next slide, which is really pass it back to you. Just for our audience, where you've talked about the landscape of the phishing radar. I got Chris's insights into where this market is going, more depth, and ultimately, this is a vendor report, right, at the end of the day. So, Chris, love to have you share, the GigaOm radar placement from vendors, and have you maybe walk the audience through this.
Yeah. So, like I've said a few times now, 360-degree graphic, right? Break that paradigm of up and to the right is where the leading solutions are. In
Hmm.
this case, we do have some leading solutions up and to the right, but we also have a leading solution down and to the right. Some other reports, we have leading solutions down to the left, up and to the left. It doesn't. It's important to just remember there isn't a single best quadrant. We have 4 quadrants here. There isn't one that's always better than the other. It depends on what your needs are, what the use cases you're trying to solve for. So when you're looking at the radar, we have left or right axis, feature play versus platform play. What we're quantifying there is how many use cases does this technology solve for? The more use cases you solve for, the further to the right, the more of a platform you are. The fewer, it's not necessarily bad. Maybe you go really deep on those ones, but you're solving fewer, so you're going to be more of a feature. And then top to bottom, we're measuring the rate of change in the solution over time, over a
Hmm.
contract life cycle, 1, 2, 3 years, whatever the case is. So what we're saying is solutions on the top will look and feel largely the same as they do on day one, as they do on day 365, 600, 900. Not to say there won't be new features and enhancements and bug fixes, but it won't be completely overhauled. Whereas solutions on the bottom, you should expect and anticipate that solution will look and feel different by the end of your contract term, either because of rapid acquisition of competition, integrating technologies. Maybe they overhaul the UI. Maybe they bring to market some wildly new feature and capability set that requires changing how the solution works. Whatever the case may be, if you're an organization that's looking to uh, buy a solution today and anticipating changes in the future, not have to change more, then innovation may be what suits you well. If you're looking to buy today and grow slowly with it and learn it and keep it forever, maturity may be where you want to look.
Super helpful. And then I noticed the maybe speak a little about what, and the there's outperform the orange versus the blue versus the light blue, like this, like the speed of innovation. Chris, you want to speak a
Yep.
bit about that?
Yeah. So we also, not only do we measure distance to center, which is generally better, but we're also looking at how quickly is the vendor building in the space? How quickly are they releasing new features? How quickly are they refining what they have? We have light blue, such as Cisco OpenText in the upper left. They're generally laggards in this space, not across the board, but if we're hyper focused on just this technology, the anti-phishing, they're not keeping pace with peers. Peers would be those in the dark blue, so Cloudflare, Darktrace, Microsoft. They are generally keeping pace with those around them, but they're not outpacing their competition.
Yeah.
And then if we look at, like in iron scales, your orange, that tells us that you're an outperformer. Your rate of change, your rate of innovation, your rate of new feature development is head and shoulders demonstrably better or faster than your peers in this space. So that means if everything remains constant, which it never does, but everything remains constant today, over the next year when we refresh this report, iron scales will be closer to center along with the other two vendors that are orange. And then everybody else will slowly shift backwards a little bit. What we're trying to do there is trying to quantify how quickly the solutions feature sets are growing, maturing, and bringing new capabilities in.
Yeah. That's super helpful. And again, just obviously thanks for, obviously, naming us not just a leader, but certainly outperforming. And, as we, kind of internally, just to share with, folks on the call, as we thought a lot about this, I think one of the themes we as an email security vendor think about is, if there is one constant, you sort of said it, Chris, like there's so many changes in the market, but it's almost like the fact that the email security, the phishing market is changing so rapidly, and it's now going through this BEC renaissance, and it's now only being like further injected with AI. Like that pace of change on the attackers, at least in our view, right, requires the vendors to just be just as fast. Almost like the need for innovation and the need for speed and the need to to drive that forward is largely driven by like the market is going that quickly. So that's why, at least in our perspective, innovation, market responsiveness is almost like the premium. At least that's how we think about it as a company.
Yeah, and that's true. There are definitely technology domains, anti-phishing is one of them, where that is a premium.
Yeah, this is great. Well, this is awesome. I have a couple more, and we're getting close to time, but this has been a super helpful kind of view into the radar. I'll ask the team who's, if you want to dive more into GigaOm's radar with Chris and his colleagues, we'll add the link there, so you can, folks can read it more in detail. I just have one slide that we'll open up to questions, Chris. I think we had a couple come in the chat, but very fast for those on the phone who are not super familiar with iron scales, I think we may have a couple new vendors out there, or new folks out there. We've been in the business since 2014, kind of pioneered the AI-powered email security platform space. And today, as an organization, we protect over 17,000 global organizations across multiple different verticals and geographies. So super excited about that. And of course, as Chris mentioned, named by GigaOm as a leader and an outperformer in the anti-phishing radar. And we're certainly grateful for that. If you are interested, just a quick pitch about us. Obviously an integrated platform with multiple capabilities for email protection, DMARC, ATO protection, deepfake protection, and integrated SAT in simulation. So I think one of those points Chris mentioned earlier, the shift to platform, we definitely are that platform approach. And there's three things we do really well. We like to think we do really well. One is you can see it on this bullets here. We protect better. So really, what we're really great at, just for our audience, if you're not familiar, is we have this adaptive AI technology that combines great models with human in the loop. And it's really there to stop these advanced phishing attacks, the BECs, the ATOs, and the deepfakes that Chris mentioned, that legacy solutions like your email gateways, right, or your Microsoft or GWS only misses, right? So really stopping advanced phishing. And something we're very proud about is the first email security vendor to actually launch deepfake protection. So if you want to learn more about that, definitely let us know. Contact your customer success manager. We can walk you through kind of our deepfake protection. The second point Chris mentioned, and we talked a little bit about it, was obviously the role of automation, right? How to make the very, very busy lives of IT and SOC admins a lot easier. And again, I'll say a lot of empathy for kind of what you, Chris, as a former practitioner, right, and our customers do. So we have these very powerful agentic automation capabilities where, if IT admin needs to go do triage or investigation on incidents, on email attacks, we make that very, very, very simple and take a lot of that time and effort away. So we built a lot of our platform just simply to make sure and to give time back to understaffed IT teams. So email security doesn't have to be that burden at the end of the day, but they can solve through that very, very quickly through automation. And the last point I'll share, which is really the last point about empowering the organization, this is kind of very, very important for us as a company, and our fundamental belief where our CEO, right, and founder started this company 10 years ago. We always believed at the end of the day that if you're going to solve an email security problem or solve a phishing problem, you don't just need great technology, which we believe we have, but you also need to make sure that you are empowering the employees in the organization and you are training them and they are up to speed on the latest attacks. So making sure you have an integrated technology approach with human training, whether that's through security awareness training or whether that's through phishing simulation, coming all that, that's really important. So taking that blended approach of great tech with really strong kind of employee empowerment is important. So I share that because I think that's something that's just very different about IronScale. So again, under one platform, if you're looking to consolidate different email security or training tools and simply have one where it works together under one roof, that ability to empower employees and do it through one platform, that's what makes us special. So I invite you to learn more for our customers, or if you want to learn more about our new capabilities, and for those who are not familiar, you'll reach out to us. We'd be happy to show you and go dive more into our platform. So we are coming toward the end, Chris, but I'm kind of looking at my chat for a couple of questions, and for those that we can't answer here, we'll certainly, I think my team out there is answering the chat, but just a couple of questions that we sort of got in. Chris, for you, a question I'm seeing here in the chat is, you talked about the broader ecosystem security in one of the features, right? Talk a little bit more here about how important integration is with broader ecosystem, whether it's SIM or SOAR or threat intelligence platforms when it comes to email security. Any point of view on that, Chris?
It's a critical function. You could have an amazingly capable solution, whether it's anti-phishing or EDR or ASM or vulnerability management. Take your pick, whatever the capability, whatever the solution is. But if it doesn't integrate with your tech stack, a whole hell of a lot of good it's doing you, right? So that's why we make sure ecosystem and we measure it is on there. So we want to enumerate what is this technology able to easily, we don't need to be building bespoke integrations, but easily integrate with, and does it align with your requirements? Your requirements are, hey, we're a Google shop, we run out of AWS, we have Palo Alto firewalls, we have whatever the case may be, run down your tech stack. Does this ecosystem align with the technology that we're looking to acquire? So even if it's 5 out of 5 across all the key features, but its ecosystem falls short for you, that's a garbage solution to your organization. It doesn't do you any good. That's why it's so important.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Chris, I have another one coming in through our chat here. What new attacker behaviors or phishing tactics really stood out in this year's research report? Anything that you're finding? But
yeah, I hate to say it because we've already said it a whole bunch.
Yeah.
The changes that AI has brought to the space.
Yeah.
It's really significantly impacted not just the organizations and the problems that they're having, but it's added all sorts of bullet points to vendor roadmaps. They
Mm.
know that they need to start solving for this because there's a volume issue, there's a complexity issue.
Okay.
Um, those combined are exacerbating problems that security teams are already seeing. Really, what it is just taking the problems we have now and multiplying it and
Mm.
making them much worse.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay, I think on that note, I think I don't see any more, but that's a good way to end it. Kind of what, just to bring it all full circle, what I'm sort of hearing is you got all these kind of AI issues right here, or AI is making problems worse. We just have to be, you have to think about this much more seriously, given that. Actually, one last question I think we have from one of our audience members here. Um, this is an interesting question. So conceptually, will there perhaps be an AI versus AI world? And then how will we judge who is the winner and why? Any thoughts on this one? This came in through the
AI battle dome, right?
Yeah.
Um, Conceptually, I could see this happening. Practically, no,
Okay.
because at the end of the day, there's still the human element
Yeah.
for now.
Yeah.
I won't say forever, but for now.
Okay. Okay. I guess we'll probably have this conversation again in 12 months, Chris, and another 24 months, and it will always be changing. I think if there's one big theme here, changing rapidly, up the landscape, the threat landscape, the vendor landscape, it just probably the most important thing for us and our buyers is trying to stay ahead of it as best as we can. That's probably the only certain thing we'll ever know in the next many years.
Yeah, just at least try. You know, don't just say, "Well, it's pointless. I'm not going to try." You have to
Yeah.
try.
That's good advice. Any last words, Chris, before we wrap up on the webinar here? This has been terrific.
No, just check out the radar report. Everything we covered here is in there: table stakes, key features, emerging features, business criteria, radar placement. If you're in the market for anti-phishing solution, this is your go-to buyer's guide.
Awesome. All right, and we'll send the link out to all of our folks on the webinar as well. Chris, really appreciate it. This is a terrific conversation. Thank you so much. I wish you a great holiday season as you round out the year, and definitely look forward to reconnecting soon.
Thanks, Grant. Good talking to you. Have a good
Okay,
one.
very good. Have a good one. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and we will all be in touch soon. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.